Welcome to Barry Does Beef Bourguignon. Beef Bourguignon is a pretty fancy term for using Pinot Noir or a bottle of Cabernet or Chianti in your stew. But the most important thing to start out with is I like to use a beef chuck. Beef chuck looks like this, about 3 pounds, 3.5 pounds, and then we're going to clean it and we're going to get rid of all the fat and the gristle. That's one of the keys. But we start off by doing what I would call a pancetta, or a thick bacon cut into small pieces. That way you get flavor into your mix from the very beginning. Important, always have a really sharp knife, always good. I have 4 cuts of thick bacon in this cut. And you need to just cut it into basically 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch slices. So go straight down and cut them into 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch looks about right. Pieces. Try to do it fast. Not that easy. And then we're going to sear it. And I like to use a cast iron grill or a cast iron pan to cook it up in, because I get the best sear for this. You can see, really nice. Okay, we're going to take our pancetta or our bacon, put it into a pan, and we're going to sear it and cook it down until we render most of the fat off of it. And we'll put the meat and we'll separate it, and we'll use the fat to cook up and to saute some onions and some mushrooms and a little bit of garlic so we can put flavor into the mushrooms. I like a smoked bacon, and we're going to render it down and cook it till it's just right. I just about rendered down this bacon into perfect little cuts. I'm going to save all of the fat, but I'm going to put this into a separate little holding vessel for the time being. Then it's going to be added to the stock later on. Okay, we've got our beef brisket, our chuck steak, and I'm going to get rid of all the gristly stuff first before I even start sectioning it out into quarters. So it's important. You can't have all of this old fat on the beef. You have to get it out. Filleting basically is trying to just get to the meat and getting rid of all that gristle. So think of it like you're cooking a fish, or you're preparing a fish and you're getting rid of the skin and the bones. You just want to get to the point where you don't have any fat left. But you know, let's be for sure, and let's let you know that this just doesn't happen in like 10-20 minutes. You need to fillet this, and you need to get all this gristle and fat out of it. And then once you get it ready to cook up, it's going to be beautiful. But you got to get the fat out before you even start cooking it. I actually finally finished all the filleting work. You can see the amount of fat that I've got here. That's probably a good 1/2 pound of just fat gristle. And you don't want that. Now look what I've got here. When I'm coming to the meat, I can break it up into sections of about 2 inches. And all right, we've got this breaking up into roughly 2 inch by 2 inch pieces. And it's pretty lean, so I'm liking the way this is going to come out. This will be a really nice stew, or beef bourguignon. There's a little bit of gristle, I'll get that out. Now we are reheating up the fat, the bacon fat, and we are going to sear our meat with this bacon fat. Turn it until it gets really nicely, well, with a good sear, you're going to lock in the juices. That's the whole idea about doing this. All right, here we go. Let's start searing. I put some salt and pepper on it. I want to brown it. I'm going to get a nice sear to all of this meat, so I'll be turning it as I need to. Should be able to get all of it in here now. Be sure you have a glass of wine, because this is going to get serious. I'm looking for that brown color, which is like that. See that little sear right here? It's the brown. I want that brown sear. As we start searing, you can see there's some water coming off here too from the meat. So there's a lot of moisture in beef. Just a quick aside, this is how your pancetta needs to look. before you put it into your stew. So while my beef is getting ready, I'm going to slice some celery, and this will be added directly to the stock pot. But I don't need to saute celery, but I do need to saute the onions and the mushrooms. I'll do a little bit of garlic, smash some garlic. I'll show you how to get the garlic right for this particular dish. So I usually cut it up into 1-inch sections for celery. The celery is going to cook down. It's going to cook down over 3 hours. Here's how we're progressing. We're almost there. Another couple minutes. I'd say a sear takes basically about 10 to 15 minutes. I don't think too many people know how to really prepare garlic for dicing. It's pretty simple. You need a really big, wide knife to be able to flatten it out and to break the crusty outer portions out of it. I just do it like that, and the skin will come right off when you do that, and then you can start your dicing. It's much easier to dice, and you're also putting flavor into the garlic by smashing it and grinding all those flavors into it. See how easy it comes off right now? Just like nothing. I'm not a pro. I can't dice 5 million pieces in 3 seconds. I do it slowly. I do a couple slices lengthwise, and then keep your fingers on the inside. So if you're going to do it, you're not going to cut yourself. I basically don't cut myself when I do this, though I know many chefs cut themselves all the time because they're cutting too fast. They're not watching that blade. Well, we've diced up the garlic. Now we have to prepare the onion. I would do something like this for an onion. I would cut it in half, and then I would remove the outer skin. I peeled back the first layer. Now I'm going to get this prepped for, I guess I'm going to go pretty much quarters on this. I leave this open so that it stays together. And then I'm just going to do it in, maybe I'll do it in thirds, so I have a nice chunk like that. Okay, so we're going to take all these pieces that have been seared. We're going to put them into our big stock pot. This is going to be where we're going to create our magic. I keep all of these juices. Every juice that you get from this is usable. That's what the flavor comes from. So don't throw it away, use it. Since I've got fairly small mushrooms, I'm going to cut these into thirds, maybe halves, so that I have a goodly amount of meat with each mushroom. In this case, this is going to be a third. These guys are going to be thirds, and so on and so on. This is a half because it's pretty small. Smaller guys halves, bigger guys thirds. And then we'll do a saute. Okay, I'm going to be doing some saute now. I'm going to be taking the onions, the garlic, and the mushrooms. And I always put a little bit of butter in it because mushrooms really like butter. In this case, I'm going to probably use about 3 tablespoons added to what I've got here to give me the flavor that I want. I've turned back on my cast iron skillet. I have melted my butter. Now I'm going to do a saute. So it's going to be onions, garlic, and mushrooms. When you do a saute, you don't want to saute hot. You want to saute where it's just mildly bubbling. That's how you get your best flavor and you don't burn the garlic. Don't burn your garlic! It tastes really rotten if you do that. And now it's time to simmer down. Cheers. The saute is starting to render down. Be sure to scrape the bottom because there's a lot of great flavors that have been leached onto the bottom, and they will add to the flavor of the onions and the mushrooms and the garlic as you're ready to finish this up. I think we have about 2 minutes left, 3 minutes left on this saute, and then we're going to add it all to our mix. You see that nice brown gravy-like substance down there? Ooh, that's what you want to mix in with your onions and your mushrooms. That's looking terrific right now. Here we go. Now we're going to drain this a little bit and put in just our sauteed ingredients into our big stock pot. I will also be adding pancetta, and celery, and then I'll be getting some beef stock to add to it, and the wine, of course. Gotta have a little wine with this all the time. I use two leaves of bay leaves for flavor. It just adds a little kind of viscosity to it. Oil, whatever you want to call it, it really affects the flavor. Then we're going to get some wine. I'm going to use just about a whole bottle of wine. In this case, I'm using an Argentinian wine. I'm doing a Malbec Cabernet blend. And I'll also be putting in some beef stock. And then we're going to simmer. Beef broth. I'll go about 3 1/4 or 3/4, which will be about 3 cups, I would imagine. That's about right there. And about 3/4 of this bottle of wine. We'll mix that in. I like a stronger flavor. Bourguignon is a Pinot Noir, and I think that it's a little light for what I want because I'm using beef. So I'm kind of going along with something that's got a little fuller body. And now it's time to simmer down. Cheers. Time to add some tomatoes. Some people like to use tomato paste. I'm pretty much of a purist. I like real whole tomatoes and I like to mash them up. And there's plenty of moisture that it has, but I think we can use more water in our mix. So I'm just gonna smash these up and then I'm gonna add them to the mix. Now we have to prep our veggies. Veggie prep time. Peel everything you've got. Today we're going to be adding to our mix. We're gonna do potatoes, carrots, rutabaga, and parsnips. I really love parsnips because they're spicy. If you're going to be cutting up ready for your veggies, right now we're about an hour, roughly about an hour away from being ready. So we're going to start cutting everything up and we'll add them in increments. I would use for a rutabaga, I would cut it at about 3/4 of an inch with a big knife because you're never going to cut it any other way. They're not the easiest to cut. Well, this is a cheap budget, you know. It's tough. Can't get a grip. Here we go. Oh my! Alright. And the last one's always easier because it's the thinnest. I feel like Julia Child. Oh, look at that! Here we go. There we go. Alright. And I cut these puppies in basically in quarters. So when they cook up, they'll be really nice. Rutabagas give a real nice flavor. We're not going to be adding things like rice or noodles to this bourguignon. We're going to just make it a vegetable stew kind of a thing, which I think is the best way to go. It's also the healthiest way to go. If you can, buy organic. It helps. Organic is always better. And I will always say, do it organically. Parsnips give spice. One of the coolest vegetables I've ever worked with, like kohlrabi, is very unusual, but they're great for stews. Same thing goes for parsnips, but cut them a little thinner, about a half an inch. And as you get towards the end, you can make them longer. Pretty much like that. We're only using one parsnip, and we use a lot of carrots. Carrots about a half an inch. Thickest parts about a half an inch, and as you get towards the other end and get towards the smaller side of the carrot, you can make it a little bit longer. So figure half inch, then about 3/4 of an inch, then about an inch, and then about 2 inches. Because it's a thickness that determines how long it's going to take to cook it. Doing it pretty fast, actually, huh? Potatoes, I do basically thirds. These are Idaho potatoes, my favorite flavor potato. You can use golden potatoes if you like to. Any potato you really like. what we got here should be perfect. To me, potatoes, this is small enough that I can do that in half. Potatoes give you the mealiness, the full bodiness that you don't get with other vegetables. And in a stew, potatoes tend to soak up the flavor a little bit better. It makes them more suitable to stews. So we're just about there. I will cut the parsnips into quarters. I want the flavors to go well. Okay, 45 minutes have passed, and now I have just cut up and entered the parsnips and the rutabagas into the mix. The meat is just starting to tenderize. I figure we have about 45 minutes left. Another 15 minutes we're going to put in carrots, and then we're going to put in potatoes. And then 30 minutes later, we're ready. Okay, we've got a good steam going right now. Everything is cooking up the way it should. I've got a good boil, but I've got quite a bit of water in there. Now, since I'm adding more vegetables, I'm going to still have some water. So I'm going to have to be careful and try to vent off as much of this water as I can to reduce the amount of water. I like a stew that has a bit of thickness to it. And I'm adding my carrots and my potatoes. We're looking at 45 minutes until we're finished. But I am concerned about the amount of water content that I have right now. This is going to be a real full stew. You're not going to need any rice. You're not going to need any noodles or any other kind of carbohydrate on it. It is what it is. It is a bourguignon stew. And it should be wonderful. The colors are looking great. See in 45. It's been about 3.5 hours total since we started. I have, in the meantime, reduced the amount of liquid in the stew by boiling it fairly open. Water content and moisture content is critical when you're doing a stew. Some of you may like to use cornstarch or flour to thicken up the sauce to make it a little thicker. I don't know if it's completely necessary. I don't usually do that. I usually just boil it off and get to the right point. All the vegetables are cooked perfectly. For me, what I do is I usually take out the potatoes first, and then I take a fork and I kind of grind them into the ground and then put sauce over that. There's something about sauce on potatoes that's just really cool. And all the other vegetables go on there. So everything looks like it's right, and we'll put together the bowl so you can see how it looks. Okay, poured it out, and I always put a little bit of gravy sauce on the potatoes. I think we're perfect for serving. Let me put it on the plate so you can get a good picture of it.